You are listening to The Fortress.
Let's see, I put this hook right in through here, thread it through the bill, put it next to the other hooks. There, I think that's about got it. Here he comes. Oh, shh. Hey, Leroy. Hey, how are you, man? How are you? Well, Bob, I got myself a problem. I am missing my favorite fish hook. You ain't seen it, have you? You know, it's my shiny fish hook. I always got it right here in the middle of my ball cap. It's the one that reflects the sunlight just right, makes it look like rainbows. You know, really pretty like, but it's a little metal fish hook. Hey, say, wait a minute. Bob, what you got up there in your hat? You never had that many hooks in your bill. What? Oh, I know you did not. Bob, ain't you been listening to Mr. Jason and what he's been telling us? He's been telling us not to covet, telling us not to want things that aren't ours. And you went and not only did you take what you wanted, but then you went and lied about it to me, Bob. I tell you what, I am hurt. I am hurt. My feelings are hurt. My heart's hurt. Bob, I cannot believe you would do such a... Now, hang on, Leroy, hang on. I tell you what, let me take this out of here. All right, got that. Here, just take it back. Give me that. Bob, I tell you what, I'm taking it back all right, and I'm taking back our friendship, too. It might be a long time before I talk to you again. God's honest truth. I can't believe you stole from me, Bob. I'm hurt. And I don't know if I'll be seeing you or not. I'm out of here. So, this week we're talking about lying. Exodus 20:16. Now, I want to kind of encompass and talk about and include all sorts of dishonesty and lying of different kinds, but 20:16 from Exodus basically says, "Thou shalt not bear false testimony against thy neighbor." Another translation, basically more modern translation, says, "You shall not give or do not give false testimony against others or about others." Either way, God doesn't want us to give false testimony. Now, in that specific commandment, the reference there can, I guess, the implication, well, it can basically be don't tell a lie about somebody to cover for their wrongdoings. At the same time, don't lie about what someone did. Don't try to get somebody in trouble for something they didn't do. Do not bear false witness. Now, there are other verses in the Bible, there are other allusions to lying and how God doesn't like it. But I think we can say, a fair amount of us know, some of our history, there have been lies that have been told throughout history that have gotten people in trouble. There are lies throughout my own personal history that got me in trouble. I've got a couple. Two that stand right at the forefront of my mind. One goes all the way back to, I think it was fourth grade. Fourth grade, I had a teacher named Miss Risney. And Miss Risney although she was a pretty teacher. I remember her having a very pretty smile, being so sweet to me and nice. However, Miss Risney's thing, every teacher's got a thing, something they just really want to hammer home with their students, make sure that their students get. Her thing was organization. Now, most of you who know me, I'm not exactly the king of organization. Well, this little story kind of goes to prove it. It might even kind of connect the dots for a lot of you out there. But Miss Risney had this, what she called the plan of attack. And it was a way to organize our assignments every week. And see, the parents knew this going in from Meet the Teacher Night, and she explained how it would work. And so she told the parents to stay on us about it, to help us organize, our plans and our studying and develop good habits and planning ahead. So it was called the plan of attack, and it was week by week. And since my mom knew this, started out, she would ask about it a little ahead of time, and I would just kind of brush it off, just kind of tell Mom, oh, yeah, Mom, I did that. Oh, don't worry, Mom, I'll do it later. Yes, I'm going to do that. I would basically lie about my plan of attack. And it got to the point where, I wasn't a bad kid, but I had been known to shirk some homework every now and then. Well, I did it so much. We got a lot of work that year, and I remember just having trouble keeping up. And if I had just followed my plan of attack, it would have been a whole lot easier. But instead, I lied and lied and lied. Until, I don't know, close to progress report time, my dad was curious. And he said, I need to see your plan of attack, Jason. And that's when the jig was up. The gig was up. However you say it. That's when I knew I was busted. I couldn't really lie my way out of it because Dad wanted to see it in person to see how much I had done. And the truth was I hadn't done anything. I had maybe filled in like the first box of this big calendar-looking chart for this plan of attack on the front of a little manila folder. I will not forget the look on my dad's face. And I will not forget how I basically lost all privileges, all freedom, all liberty. At that point, I didn't even live in a dictatorship. I was just a slave. And I just basically functioned enough to exist. And I suffered from boredom and homework. Boredom and homework. Boredom and homework. So I learned my lesson there. That lying is not a good thing. Especially not lying over and over. All right, so there's one little example. I'll give you... Now, I can't really think of personal examples for me where I lied to try to cover for somebody else. That doesn't mean it hadn't happened. I am not claiming to be the most honest person in the world and flawless and all. No. Those kind of lies just don't stand out in my memory. But another way of not telling the truth is omitting the truth. Or knowing you did something, knowing something you've done, and then never telling anybody about it. So, oddly enough, that's kind of funny. One cold night, I was doing homework in my bedroom. This was in high school, I think 10th grade. And I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and I looked out my bedroom window. And it was a cat. Now, it was cold. I don't know if you guys know this, but sometimes glass windows, it's almost like they're more brittle in really cold weather or something. I don't know. But so I decided, smart guy Jason decides I want to try to startle the cat outside my window. So I reach up and I knock on the window with my two hard knuckles, just really quick. And the whole little pane, that little tiny segment of window pane, little square out of the top section of my window, it busted right out. And I was like, oh, golly gee, that's not good. So what does Genius Jason do? Well, I take a magazine, I kind of take some pages, glue them together, and I patch them over the hole. And it happens to be a magazine that's kind of similar color to the shutters. And so I covered the hole with that. And then I closed those shutters, and I kept them closed for the longest time. And it got to the point, and this was in the winter. It got to the point where my dad would come in the room, see what I was doing, or sometimes Mom would go into my room to, I guess, sometimes she did my laundry or whatever. So they would notice that my room was drafty. And I'll never forget one day, my dad finally notices these shutters, this one set of shutters stays closed all the time. The other shutters were open, but this one set just stayed closed. So he goes and opens it. And then he pokes his hand right through the magazine pages. And I hear my name from down the hallway. I wasn't in my room when he discovered this. He says, "Jason!" I'm like, uh-oh. "Jason Edward Fort, get in here." So I go, and I seems like I recall getting into kind of a shouting match with Dad, and I was not big enough to be testing my dad's patience yet. That was just not wise. Long story short, yeah, I got in trouble. He ended up fixing the window. But it's just funny how that stands out right right at the front of my mind, because it lasted for so long. How dishonest is that? When all I really had to do is just, when I broke the little window out, I should have just taken my medicine. I should have gone and said, "Dad, I screwed up." Now, lo and behold, as I got older, when I did screw up, when I did make certain mistakes, I guess I learned from those past mistakes there. I learned to just go ahead and say, "Look, I screwed up. I need your help. What do I do about this? What do I do about that?" Now, there were still some times, trust me, I have had to gather up some courage before I asked my dad certain things. Before I said, "Dad, this is what happened." But that's just on a personal side of things. I learned that lying was not the best policy there. Now, that's just me personally. But what about you? What about any of you out there listening? Can you think of times when some dishonesty, perhaps some lying, got you in trouble? Now, we're going to talk more about this as we go. I want to apply it to different sides of things. A little bit later in the show, we'll hit on we'll hit on how sometimes lying can make future lies easier. Similar to that gateway drug effect that I've mentioned with coveting and stealing, that kind of stuff. We'll hit on that again. And then we'll talk about, how lies have led to the demise of biblical characters in the Bible, different negative consequences. We'll talk about what God thinks about lying, other things like that. So you can expect more of the discussion about lying in the show, and perhaps, before the end of the show, old Bob and Leroy can find a way to make peace. So more of that after the break.
Shut up and sit down.
An Egyptian holy man for the religion of Islam is assassinated, and the killer leaves a gold cross as his calling card. The same Christian assassin kills on U.S. soil, and it is now up to the FBI and Interpol to bring him to justice. FBI agents John Knox and Beth White team up with Interpol Inspector Malik Sharif But they are at a loss when the assassin leaves no trace of evidence at crime scenes. Meanwhile, the assassin is starting his own personal war with Muslims, and the government he works for becomes suspicious. Can a Christian FBI agent and a Muslim Interpol officer put aside their differences and perhaps even use them to track down the assassin? Can Agent White battle her spiritual demons? Can the agents find the killer before the media turns the case into an international religious circus? Join the investigators on a journey that will remind you of the latest assassin-style video game and your latest crime novel. But before it's all over, ask yourself, is the assassin any different than you or me? Or is he just misguided?
Okay, so welcome back. First of all, I wanted to point out a little verse I came across. Well, we'll start at a verse. It might go a few verses past that, but this is from the book of Ephesians in the New Testament. Let's hear a little more about how God feels about lying. This is starting at verse 25, chapter 4 of Ephesians. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Anyone who has been stealing, remember last week, must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Now that could go from, I guess, harsh or offensive language to lying itself, because is lying benefiting others? No. What it's going to do is build tension between others. So, you've got that right there. There is something from the New Testament about God's feelings about lying, especially, he just says, you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor. For we are all members of one body. What that is also implying is that if we lie to each other, there will be division. We're all part of one body, and yet lie after lie after lie, nobody knows who to believe. Well, I think in society today we can kind of see what happens. A little earlier, I mentioned that there are people in the Bible who had to learn hard lessons from lying, perhaps from stealing. We mentioned stealing, and I talked a little bit about stealing last week. But there was an old fella. He was actually a disciple. He's found in the book of Acts. And his name was Ananias. And at the end of chapter 4 of Acts, it kind of leads into chapter 5. We have these disciples, and they're members of this group. This group of disciples in an early church in Jerusalem. And two members of this group were Ananias and his wife. Some people say Sapphira. It's Sapphira. Anyway, they had sold a field, and part of the profit from their sale was kept back by the married couple. And see, they were supposed to bring and lay their money at the apostles' feet. And they were supposed to lay all their money at the apostles' feet. And Mr. Ananias had different plans. He pretended that he had given all his proceeds. But this hypocritical show, well, it may have fooled some, but it didn't fool Peter, who happened to be filled with the power of the Holy Spirit. Peter knew instantly that Ananias was lying
And so he wasn't just lying to Peter, but because the money was supposed to be used for God, he was lying to God. And so what did Peter do? He exposed Ananias' actions to the people. Right then, Ananias fell down and died. Right then. Because of, I guess, ultimate guilt and that I can't believe I'm caught. Why did I do such a thing? I guess the shock. Boom. I guess, or the power of God. And he died. And then when Sapphira shows up, she too lied to Peter and to God, saying that they had donated the entire proceeds for the church. And when her lie had been exposed, she also fell down and died at Peter's feet. Yikes. Sounds harsh. What if people died today the instant they were caught in a lie? Goodness gracious. We'd have people falling down everywhere. So I wanted to talk about this and just bring it to everybody's attention out there. Really think of the consequences of lying. I already kind of pointed out how it can divide. We're all part of one body, the body of Christ. And so we believers, we don't want to lie and divide the body of Christ. Cause division. We don't want to do that. But lying also has other consequences. I mean, besides what seems to sound like the harshest one, and that is instant death. Besides that, what about, very similar to what I said about stealing, you're kleptomaniacs, you're compulsive liars. What about once somebody starts lying? Well, it's easy if you lie and you get away with it, and it seems like nobody's ever going to find out the truth. Does that not make it just a little bit easier to tell another one? And another one? Till almost, you don't know what's true anymore from that person's lips. So it's like a gateway drug. It's like once you start, you get the high from it, you can't stop. And then you're constantly seeking to get a better high, to make the drug reference. Why do we think that is? Why do we think that is? I have my own feelings about it. I'm sure the Bible, I could find other things in the Bible to point to the difficulties that come about from lying. But is it not a weapon used by Satan? I mean, after all, although Satan didn't really lie, he did lie. He twisted words, which is basically the same as lying. Because God did mean what he said when he said to Adam and Eve, if you eat of it, you will surely die. So, sure, that might not have meant physical death, but it was spiritual death. It was spiritual separation. And the devil went and twisted those words and said, oh, you surely will not die, but you will know that you will know the difference between good and evil. You will know more. You will have knowledge. Well, that's tempting, and that's really kind of besides the point, Mr. Devil. So really, hasn't he been doing that all along? And we let him, unless we try to constantly ask for God's help in battling things like temptation, which is an instrument of the devil. So these sins that I've described so far, these ways to break the commandments, lying, stealing, coveting, how do we fight that? You can only fight it with God. The power of God can fight it. We can try ourselves, but I'm telling you, if you do it alone, you're fighting an uphill battle. One that you can't win. See, if we could win it by ourselves, we wouldn't have needed Jesus. God knew that. I mean, I went and I tried to make a little list of things that lies really do once you let them enter your life and enter your relationships. So, I mean, lies can ruin the relationships. Well, that's a no-brainer, right? You lie to your wife, you cheat on your wife, you commit adultery, she finds out, okay, just consider the relationship ruined, right? Lies can earn enemies. I mean, if you go and tell a story about somebody else, talk about them behind their back, and it's not even true, guess what? You will probably earn an enemy or two or several. Lies can put you in danger. You lie to the wrong guy or girl, they might let you have it because they found out you were untruthful. Read any good gangster book or watch a gangster movie, you'll see that. They get it. If Hollywood gets that, surely we can get it. And lies and guilt from lies, through holding back the truth, can destroy us and eat away at us from within. So I want to ask you, think about the lies that maybe you've had in your life. Think about the way you felt when you were lied to and you discovered it. Or maybe you knew it right away, kind of like Peter knew that Ananias lied right away. How did it make you feel? It's a very divisive tool that Satan has used to divide us. And isn't that what he meant to do from the beginning? If he could twist God's words, pretty much lie to Adam and Eve, that lie permanently, well, at least until Jesus comes back, it put a rift, a division between God and man. We were no longer at his side. We were no longer able to just talk face to face. Well, not really face to face, but you know what I mean. We fell because of a lie. All right, so go back, ponder that for a while. I'm going to go to another break. When we come back, I'm still not done with this. I want to talk about, well, maybe the demise of other biblical characters, but also negative consequences that could be brought about by other very long-standing lies. So, and I'll ask a couple of questions, other things I want you to think about. All right, when we return.
Russian mobsters are dying in a federal prison, and at first it looks like it may be a case of racism and hate. But agents John Knox and Malik Sharif realize they are dealing with one elusive killer, and things are turning out to be much more than they seem. Between Malik's encounter with his dad for the first time in years, and John Knox's discoveries involving the possibility of capturing the same man who killed his former partner, the agents have more than they bargained for. Why is the killer targeting Russian mobsters? Will Malik find the spiritual awakening which it seems Knox and Malik's dad have experienced? Is there something more sinister and far deeper behind the death in the prison? Follow the two agents and meet several new characters in this second installment in the Knox Mission series as they discover murder, racism, hate, conspiracy, and even hope through it all. But just when everyone seems to think they have it all figured out, you'll see they are all mistaken.
All right, welcome back. So I've mentioned this whole thing about lying, how it's not good. I've even mentioned, well, you know, it is a problem we've had going back to the beginning of time, and even the fact that Satan himself lied just to get his way to cause the first initial division in the first place. So I started thinking about this, and I kind of envisioned the devil, Satan, stirring the pot. You know, if he really knows the same thing, the same types of things that somebody, say, down in history named Sun Tzu, if he knows that division can help a conqueror win, can help defeat somebody, well, then that's what he's going to do. And God even knows that Satan's not dumb. So as I thought of, how the devil stirs the pot by tempting so many of us to lie, I started playing the what if game. I think you guys have heard me talk about the what if game before. That's kind of how I write my stories, how I write my novels. So I want you to ponder this. What if you could create such division that you could convince a lot of the people out there who maybe never believed in God before to convince them of a different version of God? What if that version of God was actually Satan all along? What if I were to tell you that there is a worldwide religion amongst us now that even uses the art of lying to protect that religion, and it's embedded in the culture itself? Perhaps you've heard of Takia. Takia is basically the practice of one not completely being forthcoming or honest about their identity as a Muslim in order to protect them as a Muslim. Well, that is deception, right? If you're not telling the truth about who you are, you're deceiving. But it goes further than that. And this, I found something in one of the hadiths by Bukhari. I want to make sure I read this right. Okay, this is book 49, number 857. And Allah's apostle was heard saying, "He who makes peace between the people by inventing good information or saying good things is not a liar." I understand the whole idea of making peace between people. However, if it's all based on a lie, how is it really truly peace? And that's deceptive. That right there is deceptive. It's deception. So yes, I am referring to the worldwide religion of Islam. See, I believe that throughout the years, and coming down through history for about 1,400 years now, ever since Muhammad, I guess basically became possessed, or at least was spoken to by the devil and not the angel Gabriel, I believe he brought forth a religion that was meant to grow and grow expediently. But it was to grow by evil means. It was to grow by force. And it was to grow by deception. Look at what certain organizations that have been embedded within our own government even have done. They have proposed to be this advocate for Islam, this advocate for Muslims because they're so discriminated against, blah, blah, blah. But then you find out what they're doing. You find out that they're easing their way into education. They're easing their way here. They're easing their way in here to bring about cultural change through basically a civilized form of making war, by crumbling some of the old way of the culture from within. See, the Muslims, especially the Muslim Brotherhood, call this civilized jihad. How does that make you feel? All warm and fuzzy inside, right? But what if? See, this is the what if game I was talking about. What if Islam is truly a form of Satanism? I mean, if you could convince half of the world's population to worship you, I mean, if you're Satan, well, doesn't that raise you up a pretty big army against God? See, to me, that makes sense in my what if game here. This is not a new concept. I'm not saying that I'm the only one that thinks this way. I read a great fiction novel, I think I mentioned it, Soul Deceiver. It's actually kind of along these lines, where basically the Antichrist comes from, or comes up out of, Islam. See, to me that makes perfect sense. All right, we are talking about the greatest deceiver in history. Why would he not want to tell a lie or create a really, really big lie? Why would he not want to do that? To basically have recruits. To recruit a larger and larger base of supporters who think they're worshiping God. That is the ultimate deception, is it not? This lying. All this lying. And we have these back doors into people's other people's governments, other people's nations. And this evil force is somehow finding its way in. Look how deceptive it is. It even uses our compassion against us. The terrorists themselves from ISIS have even admitted that they will be hiding amongst the helpless, the refugees. And yes, I do have sympathy, empathy, compassion for these people in this desperate situation from the areas of Iraq and Syria. I really do. The ones that don't have evil intentions. But the mere fact that Muslims, self-proclaimed Muslims, are willing to deceive and hide amongst the innocent to create war, to come into another country and kill people in the name of Allah, aka Satan, well, then, goodness gracious, are we missing something here? Are our leaders missing something here? And I'm not just talking about our government leaders, religious leaders. This persecution of Christians and Jews is very real. And there is true genocide going on in the world today because people are calling on the name of Jesus, and these Satan worshipers, if you will, these deceived Satan worshipers, are killing Christians, killing Jewish people, threatening outright at the highest level the country of Iran, basically saying they want to get rid of us. They're calling us Satan. Well, that's clever and deceptive of them. And then Israel, little Satan. They come right out and say they want to annihilate us, wipe us off the map so that they can have a excuse me, have a one world religion. What would that religion be? Well, if Satan had his way, it'd be them really worshiping him. Do I know this for a fact? No, I don't. This is just an idea that's in my head. It's been affirming when I have found someone like Lynn Liaz, the author, / speaker, / whatever, all the other stuff she does. But when I find somebody else who thinks like me and came across these same kind of revelations, maybe, or at least contemplations, thinking, well, what if this is really what's going on? So I don't know it for sure, but boy, wouldn't that be clever of dear old Satan, lying his way to bring about Armageddon in the first place. It's okay. It really is, because God tells us it's going to be okay. God tells us who wins in the end. We already know who's going to win. Yet Satan, in his arrogance and in his pride, he's persistent. He perseveres, that's for sure. And he's trying to lie his way to the top. I, for one, don't want to just sit back and watch that happen. I also don't want to help him in any way. See, I think any one of us, when we become part of the lie, when we buy into the lies, even if we've had the truth revealed to us, if we deny the truth, we're just contributing to Satan's cause. Now, whether that cause be brought about by Islam, like I think, or some other horrible worldwide threat to humanity, I don't want to contribute to it. I don't think any of you listening out there do either. I recommend finding more truth, finding out more about the truth of God, of Jesus, who Jesus was and is. See, if we expose ourselves to the truth, inundate ourselves with the truth, perhaps we're not as tempted to lie in the first place. I really want to know what you guys think. Please email me www.jasonefort@jason-e-fort.com. That's one way. Or just fortress23@gmail.com. That's my personal email. Or just shoot me a line through my website at www.jason-e-fort.com on the contact page. But I want to hear from you guys. What is your take on Islam? I mean, if you read my books, you know that's kind of close to my heart, dear to my heart anyway. I want to know what you guys think. I've had a little bit of feedback here and there. I sure would like some more because I want to get to know more of you people out there. Whether you're listening to me in Colorado or Canada or Brazil, I think some people have listened to me from all weird countries that I never would have expected, just because I can see the hits from my little analytics as far as what manages my website. So shoot me a line. Tell me what you think. We're going to talk a little bit more about this whole lying problem after one more break. When we come back.
Russian mobsters are dying in a federal prison, and at first it looks like it may be a case of racism and hate. But agents John Knox and Malik Sharif realize they are dealing with one elusive killer, and things are turning out to be much more than they seem. Between Malik's encounter with his dad for the first time in years, and John Knox's discoveries involving the possibility of capturing the same man who killed his former partner, the agents have more than they bargained for. Why is the killer targeting Russian mobsters? Will Malik find the spiritual awakening which it seems Knox and Malik's dad have experienced? Is there something more sinister and far deeper behind the death in the prison? Follow the two agents and meet several new characters in this second installment in the Knox Mission series as they discover murder, racism, hate, conspiracy, and even hope through it all. But just when everyone seems to think they have it all figured out, you'll see they are all mistaken.
So I want to ask you, what good will lying bring? And before you just come right out and answer that for yourself with one of these, I don't know, examples of when someone lied to save somebody else, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about lying in general. The practice of being deceitful, being dishonest. What good comes from it? Can God see any good in lying? God tells us that He loves truth. I mean, if you want to hear another example from, I don't know, the religion of Allah, this is from another book, 84, number 64, volume 9 of the writings of Bukhari, one of the hadiths. Whenever I tell you a narration from Allah's apostle, by Allah, I would rather fall down from the sky than ascribe a false statement to him. But if I tell you something between me and you that's not a hadith, then it could indeed be a trick. Wait a minute. So, a teacher of Muhammad, Bukhari, is basically saying, well, I'm not going to tell you any false statements. I'm not going to say any false statements to someone when I'm trying to teach him about Allah, but I'll lie to somebody else. As long as it's not about the hadiths. Then it's not really false. What? No, that doesn't make any sense. But obviously, there are some problems within a religion when their own God is having teachers of that religion condone lying. Basically in defense of the faith and in order to promote the faith, to keep it going. What good can come from lying? See, God is truth, so He can't lie. So if something is a lie, where does it come from? Satan. Satan is everything God is not. How can this knowledge of lying apply to what we witness in the world today? What can we do with this? I don't have any, for sure answers other than I know that I can try to speak the truth as much as possible and tell others how important it is to do the same. The ultimate truth is, of course, revealing that light in this dark world, that light being Jesus. Jesus told us that He is the way, the truth, and the life. If we want eternal life by God the Father, we need to tell the truth and live the truth. We don't need to deceive others. We don't need to live a life that is a lie. We do not need to be pretenders. Hypocrisy is the same as lying. If you're not being true to your own identity, if you're pretending to be somebody else that you're not, you are lying. You're omitting the truth. And if you are claiming to be something you're not, that's not omitting the truth, that's just lying. We shouldn't lie. We shouldn't bear false witness. When we are testifying in some manner, when someone is questioning us what happened, if we were party to it, if we did it, then we need to confess. If we didn't do it, but we don't know who did it, we shouldn't insinuate blame on somebody if we don't know that they are the ones that did it. That's lying as well. Inventing the truth is impossible, except for through God, because God can basically make the world go round. But we can't invent truth. If you invent your own truth, you're lying. I hope you guys just kind of know where I'm coming from out there. I want you to think about the lying in the world around you, the lying at work, lying at school. Maybe I have young listeners out there. I don't know. What if, lying is going on in your own family? How have lies hurt you in your own life? How have they hurt you in the past? Are you suffering because of the results of a lie now? I want you to consider this stuff. How can it impact your future? Can we live a lie and still be witnesses for Christ? I don't think so. Ponder all that over the next week. I haven't really even decided which commandment I will jump into. I'll just jump right into something next week. I'll leave it as a surprise. But until then, hey, what are you doing, Bob? What are you doing? Mr. Jason, I wanted to come on here. I wanted to make an announcement. I wanted to make a public apology. A public apology? Oh, this is about that thing earlier, isn't it? Yeah, I'm afraid so. I owe Mr. Leroy, my good and dear friend, an apology. I told a lie. I told him I had not seen his fish hook, and I had been the very one, to take it from his hat. When he wasn't looking, I took it. I thought it'd be a nice added decoration, and then I lied about it. Well, I'm glad you can at least be a man enough to, to man up and confess your sin there. Good job, Bob. Good job.
Hey, excuse me.
Excuse me. I just want you to know, Bob. Mr. Jason, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt your show or nothing, but I noticed you gave Bob some time. So by all means, go ahead. Lay it out there. Bob, I want you to know I was deeply hurt, but because you were man enough to come on here on the air and apologize, I'm going to let it slide this time. I appreciate your honesty now. Let's not let that happen again. You and I are friends, and that friendship means something. A man's word means something. Yeah, I get it. Thanks for accepting my apology. So you two guys are going to be friends again? Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, good. Glad we got that out of the way. Well, there you go, folks. We got forgiveness coming because somebody actually confessed the truth. They told the truth instead of living a lie. Remember, don't tell lies. It's not good. We're having to fight a lie every day that goes all the way back to the beginning. We want to be agents of truth for God our Father and in the name of Christ. God bless each and every one of y'all out there, and have a good night.